All right, hey YouTube. We are going to continue our religious studies segment with Judaism. All right, let's get into it. All right, Judaism. All right, now we're going to look at the Hebrew Bible. All right, now sometimes Christianity, we refer to the Hebrew Bible as the Old Testament, okay? But there are some differences with the Christian Bible, with the Old Testament in it, and the Hebrew Bible, all right? All right, Judaism is so associated with the land of Israel, but it's also associated with its most important book, which is the Hebrew Bible, okay? The Hebrew Bible is published as a single volume. It's made up of individual books, okay, which were once written scrolls, okay? So we know the individual books, you know, of the Bible, you know, or the Hebrew Bible. I'll try to stay just Hebrew Bible and not focus on the New Testament, all right? Just focusing on, like I said, you know, we refer to it from Christian perspective or as the Old Testament, but again, there are differences, okay? So we have, you know, your separate books from Genesis all the way to Zechariah, I believe is the last book in the Old Testament, okay? But let's just keep on going, okay? Because I don't have a separate Hebrew Bible. I just have, I have a whole bunch of Bibles, but I got the Christian Bibles, okay, with the Old Testament in it, all right? Okay, but where does the word Bible come from? It is Greek. Is from the Greek word biblia, all right, which means books. It doesn't stand for basic instructions before leaving earth, okay, even though that's cute. Okay, but it's from the Greek term biblia, okay, which means books, okay? They're individual books, and of course they were originally oral, okay, that were written down. Some were written, it says, as early as 900 BCE, before Christian era. I'm looking because I'm outside. It's nice and cool. I still have my air conditioner on though, and it looks like it's about to rain, but hopefully not. Okay, but anyway, the final form was achieved around 200 BCE. It was once thought that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, okay? The first 5 books of the Bible are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The first 5 books of the Bible are called the Torah, all right? However, it's no longer a belief that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Now, you might find in some Christian circles, okay, that they may still hold on to that belief system, but you know, not here from the Jewish perspective, okay? And you might, and I only say this because I had a student, a Jewish student in one of my classes, there might be some Jewish communities that still hold to some of those, you know, traditional beliefs like that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, okay? But generally, it's not a common held belief anymore, okay? Now, why do you say that? Why don't they believe that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible? Because, first of all, I think in the last book, I think it's in Deuteronomy, Moses' death is recorded. Well, you know, and you know, you don't typically record your own death, number one, you know, although some people may who want to hold on to the belief system so tightly, you know, that's the case, you know, may say he might have predicted it or something like that, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, okay? But typically, you know, you don't record your own death, as well as the writing styles are different, you know, and like I said before, we all have our own, what I like to call our own energy signature. We write a certain, you know, each individual, we write a certain way, you know, we dress a certain way, walk a certain way, talk a certain way, etc., etc., okay? You know, if you hear a particular voice, hey, that sounds like Miss Kenyatta, okay, or whatever, you know, your friends or people that you know, your mom, or everybody had, you know, when you see your mother's signature, okay, or someone that's very close to you, you know that's their signature. I use example of if you are a reader and there's a particular author you like, you know their writing style, okay, because you read a lot of their books, okay, will be different than another person's writing style, okay, no matter how closely they might try to, you know, emulate or copy it, all right? Everybody has their own specific, unique like I said, I like to call it energy signature, okay? But let's just keep on going. Now, the first 5 books of the Bible are called the Torah, All right. And the Hebrew Bible is divided into 3 sections. Hold on. Okay. Now, well, let me go back to what I was saying about, you know, it's not a common held belief anymore that Moses wrote the first 5 books. Scholars now see the Torah as composed of 4 strands of material, which arose in different periods. All right. But carefully intertwined, okay, by later biblical editors. All right. Okay. And as you know, those scholars and, you know, who have focused on that and done the study, done the research, etc., okay, and have come up with that conclusion. Now, the Hebrew Bible is divided into 3 sections. Okay, you have the Torah, which are the teachings, the Nevi'im, which are the prophets, and the Ketuvim, which are the writings. Okay, so you have Torah, T, Nevi'im, in, Ketuvim, K. This is called the Tanakh. Okay, or we might say the Tanakh. Okay, but you know that last part, Tanakh. Okay, but anyway, all right. So this is the acronym made up of those 3 letters. Okay, again, the Hebrew Bible, not just the Torah, but the Torah. Remember, it's just the first 5 books. The Hebrew Bible itself, okay, is 3 separate. I guess you could call them sections. Yes, sections. Okay, the Torah is the sacred core of the Hebrew Bible. Okay, the first 5 books is the sacred core of the Hebrew Bible. Okay, what do we have in there? We had the creation story, the stories of Adam and Eve, Noah, the Hebrew patriarchs and matriarchs, all right, and the early ancestors of the Hebrew people. Moses is the great liberator and the lawgiver. Aaron is the founder of the priesthood. It includes laws about daily conduct and religious ritual. Okay. Okay, and any kind of material that would be of importance to the later development of Judaism. Because the Torah comprises 5 books, so it's also sometimes called the Pentateuch. Okay, and the Pentateuch is a Greek word which means 5 scrolls. Torah, the term Torah is also used to refer to all the teachings, both oral and written, okay, that are believed to have been translated. I mean, excuse me, not so much translated, but revealed by God. Okay. Now, the second part of the Tanakh, okay, which is the prophets, or the Ketu. Did I say it right? No, the Nevi'im. All right, is named for the individuals who spoke in God's name to the Jewish people, the prophets, people who spoke to God's name. I mean, people who spoke in God's name to the Jewish people. These books concentrate on the history of the Israelite kingdom, okay, which is called the former prophets, followed by additional books which are more strongly visionary and moral in tone, called the latter prophets, or the later prophets. The latter prophets the voices of the individual prophets in the latter prophets, excuse me, the voices of the individual prophets tend to predominate. Okay. So, you know, you have your prophets like, you know, Joshua, you know, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, etc., etc. Okay. Now, the third part of the Tanakh, which is the Ketuvim, which are the writings. This is what we look at, or is viewed as imaginative literature. It includes some late historical books, excuse me. We have in those books short stories, Proverbs, okay, the book of Proverbs, reflection on life, hymn lyrics, what would be the hymns, the Psalms, okay, and poetry. Okay, now for all of this, we're going to use the term Hebrew Bible. Okay, now that Jews don't refer to the Hebrew scriptures as the Old Testament. They don't have an Old Testament. Okay, that's Christian terminology. Okay, Old Testament. Again, that's Christian terminology. For the Jews to call it the Old Testament would imply that the Jewish books have meaning in relation to Christian books. What are the Christian books? The New Testament. All right. No, they don't have no Old Testament. Okay. The order of books in the Hebrew Bible in the format that is assumed by the end of the 10th century CE differs from the general order that is found in the Christian Bible. Okay, so again, it's not in the same order. And there are some books here. I have a section here in my book, Books of the Hebrew Bible. So I'm looking at some books. Let me see. First of all, it's not written. All of these are, the order is close, okay? But the order is, well, he might just have this section, though. I'm not sure. But there are, I see a couple of books. Well, maybe not. Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st Samuel, 1st Kings, 1st Chronicles. Let me see, Chronicles. I'm just going over them, y'all. 1st Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah. Yeah, they're not in the exact same order, okay, as what we have in the Old Testament, unless he just has them written here in the sections. But I don't think so, okay, because it does say here the order is different than what we have in the Christian Bible, okay. Also, in the Christian Bible, the terms are, the names of the books are written in Greek, okay? Genesis, Exodus, etc. That what you know, those are Greek words, all right? But here we have the books of the Bible in Hebrew, okay? And of course, why are the names of the books Greek? Is it Greek in the Christian Bible? Because it's based off of Greek translations. All right, so Genesis, the Hebrew word is Bereshit. Okay, I like this for Job because I'm reading Job. Eov, Iyyov. Okay, I can't pronounce all these. I just want to give you a couple of examples. All right, now, what about the historical accuracy of the Hebrew Bible? It's not always certain. Okay, because not all biblical accounts can be verified by archaeological finds or references in other historical records. Okay, so we know, we have archaeologists, we have people that, studied and, got whatever kind of degree or paper they needed to get to go out and do these archaeological digs to find out, what's out there. Okay, on earth, okay, to bring us back some history, all right, based upon their findings. And there is nothing to verify, okay, the historical accuracy of the Hebrew Bible, all right, and that you don't find there are no references found anywhere else. Although we can presume that many of the accounts are based on historical fact. What accounts? Those events after the Jewish kingdom was established. Okay, so understand that when you're reading the history of the Israelite kingdom, okay, the term he used here, all right, creation, there was no Hebrew king, the Adam and Eve story, or the creation story, there was no Hebrew kingdom, okay, that came, you find that as you're reading the book, you find the history, okay, how it got started, again, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, okay, etc. All right, so some, like Job, for example, the book of Job, like I'm reading the book of Job, okay, and it is believed that Job was probably the first written book, okay, remember, written, okay, not necessarily oral, but written, okay, and in the Bible that I'm using for that segment that I'm doing, maybe I'll read it next time I do it. Okay, maybe tonight, if I feel like it. It says that, the people that were reading about Job and his family and his quote-unquote friends, these people were not Hebrews. There was no Hebrew kingdom. Okay, there was no establishment, of the Hebrew community or the Israelite community, when this book was written. Okay, so they're not Hebrews. They're not Jews. Okay, all right. Okay, so, because that hadn't occurred yet. All right. Okay. Let's see. We also must recognize that the stories were recorded by the Jews themselves, okay, who viewed historical events from their own perspective, all right, not necessarily the world perspective, okay. And I know it may seem like, well, how can you say that, okay, but you know, people write their history, their traditions based off of their perspective, based off of their worldview. I just said it, based off of their world view, their understanding, okay, which a lot goes into that, okay. So you have a small group of people in one part of the world, okay, recording and writing, okay, or first oral transmission, and then recording and writing their history, okay. All right, so, you know, understand that it's kind of like, what do they say about people who, oh shit, something about, I wish I knew the quote exact, you know, people who won or whatever write the history based off of their perspective, okay. Now I'm not saying they won anything, I'm just saying that saying, okay. So all of us, okay, even the quote-unquote losers, and I'm saying that in terms of competitiveness, competition, which this what the seamless world is about. But anyway, no matter what, you are going to write everything from your particular perspective, because that's what you know. Your perspective, okay. You don't know anybody else's, all right. You write it from your own. But let's continue on. All right. Furthermore, many accounts were transmitted orally long before they were written down, okay, or assembled in final form, and this of course affected the way that the stories were recounted. Now let's look at some biblical history. Okay, now whatever the historical accuracy, okay, according to the author of my textbook, he says the heroic and mythic power of the Hebrew Bible cannot be denied. It's filled with astonishing people and powerful images. Adam and Eve standing naked in the garden. He gives some examples, okay, of these images among trees and streams in the Garden of Eden. Noah and his wife surrounded by, you know, animals in this big wooden boat riding out a long flood. Here we got Moses climbing to the top of a cloud-covered mountain, Mount Sinai, to speak with God and receive the 10 Commandments. Okay, we got big movies about these things. Okay, so we can say that these are powerful images, okay, in that regard. Some powerful storytelling here, okay. I'm not saying it's the only powerful storytelling, okay, but we're talking about this specific one right now, okay. These images and ideas are not only unforgettable, but they are also a part of Western culture and have influenced Western culture, influenced its laws, okay, art, literature, and ways of living. Understand? Okay. So when I say, you probably have heard me say in other videos, okay, Western culture is Judeo-Christian culture. It is, okay. Not only has it affected, okay, it's art and literature, but it's affected its laws, okay. What is the religion of the Western culture? Judeo-Christianity. Judeo-Christianity is the religion of the Western culture. Now, I'm not talking about you and your own individual self. You know, if you say, no, I don't follow that, that's you. We're talking about the culture at large. Okay, it has affected its laws, it has affected its way of living, it has affected how we think we should live and how we think we should be in the world, okay? Whether you know Judeo-Christianity or not, you are a part of a culture where that is the religion of the culture, okay? And you know, if you were born and raised in this culture, okay, then it is a part of you, okay? So a lot of times people say, you know, I'm not Christian, okay? I can understand that on a you know, kind of a certain level, but when you talk about the culture, okay, and that your beingness, okay, is a part of your culture, okay, or your culture is a part of your beingness, because that's the culture that you were raised in, okay, in every way, not just in your house. Okay, the culture, the way of living, the way of seeing the world, your belief system, okay? You will find it in movies, and I'm not talking about movies being made about Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve and all that type of thing, okay? You will find it in in every aspect of your culture. Okay. All right. In a sense, yet you are. Okay. You may not have made any kind of profession to that way of being, or go to a church or to a synagogue, or, you know, practice that particular belief system of those religions, okay, individually. But with it being in every culture has some kind of spiritual or religious system that has influenced its laws, its art, its literature, and its way of living. Okay, everyone does. Okay, that's kind of another reason I want to do the religious studies series, so that people can have understanding on a broader perspective, and have an understanding of exactly what religion is and exactly how it influences our lives, whether we live, again, whether we practice that particular religion or not. All right, but let's keep on going here. In the beginning, what they used to say when I was growing up in school, in the big inning. Okay, they used to, I went to these Christian schools, you know, and they would say little cute, corny stuff like that, all right? But the section is in the beginnings, okay? Stories of origins. Now, the earliest stories of the Hebrew Bible are given in Genesis, the first book, Genesis chapter 1 through 11. They have a mythic quality, and they are universally appealing, okay? The story of the origin of the world presents God, okay? We see God here. How is God presented? God is intelligent. God is active. God is a masculine power. We refer to God. God is referred to as He. Okay, who overcomes primeval chaos. Okay, in the beginning, God created the world. World was out void. Okay, and then God brought some order to it. Okay, it was chaotic. Okay, and how did He bring the order to this primeval chaos? He separated things. I think that's funny. Okay, I think it's funny because when you understand, like when we talk about the yin and yang, here we are looking at another culture, okay, a spiritual or religious perspective. Okay, the yin and the yang. Okay, these things that are opposite yet complementary. And when you really look at it, okay, at the symbolism of the yin and yang, and you understand what it is, it's really no separation at all. Okay, but let's keep on going. So this is how this God of this Bible, okay, and of this culture, okay, this intelligent God, this active God, this masculine God, okay, and we're going to go into, when I get to it, it's on my list to get to eventually, okay, look at the Nag Hammadi and some of the stories in the Nag Hammadi, okay, and there's one in particular about this God. Okay, and I'm sure for some of you all who watch some lecturers such as Bobby Hemmett and you know, some others, okay, this God is referred to as Yah Both, okay, or the demiurge, okay, but we're not going to I'm not getting into all that right now, okay, but nevertheless, okay, so bringing order to chaos. Separate. We got to separate some shit, y'all, okay. Divide and conquer. Yes, He divided things and conquered the chaos, okay, by dividing things, by separating things, okay. So what did He separate? Separated light from darkness, land from water. Okay, He completes His work in stages, okay, over 6 days. At the end of each day, God views, looks at everything, says that it's good. He's happy with what He has done. It's good, okay, He's satisfied with it. And on the 7th day, what does God do? God rests, okay. Now, this account of this creation story, we find it, okay, written, we find it paralleling, okay, another creation story from another culture, okay, the Babylonian culture. This was a Babylonian epic poem called the Enuma Elish, okay, and we know that the Hebrew people here were in exile at one point, okay, in Babylon. All right, so, you know, maybe they borrowed something, okay, this creation story, okay, called the Enuma Elish, okay. All right, now we find the creation story in the very first book of the Bible. The first account is cosmic and measured, Okay, and it says it possibly was written that way to be read solemnly, whatever, by a priest at temple ceremonies. The second account, okay, which was written before the first account, okay, it is the second, but it was written before the first account. It begins in the second chapter of Genesis. This account is more human, has colorful dialogue, focuses on the first human parents, Adam and Eve, and their moral dilemma. Now, the Garden of Eden, okay, was created for God's refreshment, it says, okay. It's based on the pattern of a walled garden, complete with fruit trees, birds, exotic animals, a central fountain, and streams to cool the air. Okay, you know, you don't necessarily see that, okay, in the Christian Bible, the Old Testament, okay, but I guess maybe that can be extracted from it, okay. God creates Adam to live in a garden as its gardener and caretaker, forms his body from the dust of the earth, breathes life into Adam with his own breath, and what do we find? Man became a living soul, okay. In some way, Adam is a copy of himself, okay. For the human being, the Bible says, is made in the image of God, okay. So what do we find? Well, okay, we do find it. It says, let us make man in our own image, okay, but we will get to that, okay. So God forms him from the dust of the ground, breathes his life into him, and then he lives, okay. All right. So it's made in the image of God, bearing some of the dignity of God. Soon, okay, Adam becomes lonely, and God gives him a companion. Now, we have two accounts here in the Bible, okay, in the Hebrew Bible, of the creation of Adam and Eve. Okay, God takes a rib from Adam while he's in deep sleep and forms Eve around that rib, right? In the first account, so there are two accounts. In the first account of creation, male and female were created simultaneously. They were created together, simultaneously, at the same time, okay? In the second account, which is the account that most of us are more familiar with, okay, Adam is created first, then Eve is created from Adam's rib. All right. All right. Now this leads to the interpretation. The second account leads to the interpretation that man or male is made in the image of God, and the female is only a copy of the male. Okay. Now, having that understanding goes into some of this thing, ways that we see male and female, okay, in our culture. All right. Now, I think he's going to say it. Yeah, he's going to say it. Okay, I want to jump the gun. Now, interestingly, the conception of God and oh, no, he doesn't say it. Now, the first creation, okay. Now, many of you are familiar with Lilith. All right, it's all kind of stories out there about Lilith, okay. I cannot tell you whether those stories are correct or not, and I cannot tell you that some of those stories about Lilith are the way that Lilith is viewed in the Hebrew culture. But Lilith is a part of the Hebrew culture, okay. It is believed, now we find that in the first account, male and female were created once again simultaneously. It is believed that it was when they were created together simultaneously, okay, that Lilith, it was the first woman created when God created Adam and, you know, the woman at the same time, okay, Lilith, okay. And that is a part of the Hebrew culture, okay, this story about Lilith, okay. Now the rest of the things that I have seen about Lilith, I don't know if that is it might be, okay. Somebody, y'all write in the comments, okay. I live right around the corner from a Jewish community, Jewish stores and everything right around here, you know, synagogue right on a couple of them, right here on the corner. You know, I see, you know, the Orthodox Jews, I see them all the time. I can always stop and ask, or talk to them, you know, get more information. Usually they're more than happy to tell you when you talk to people, you know. I like to talk to people, you know. This is how I find out things, okay. And this is how doors and opportunities are open for me, you know. I just talk to folks, you know. And because one time I did go in the store owned by a Jewish man, and I talked to him for a while. He gave me some information. Now, I did have a television program here in the area called Religion Today. It was on Cleveland TV 20. This was quite a few years ago, but my goal was to, you know, I think I talked about that in one of my videos, was just to kind of educate the Northeast Ohio area, you know, on just some of the basic tenets of these religions, like what I'm doing here on my videos. And I didn't get a chance to do Judaism, but that would have been so great to be able to have a rabbi come in and interview him. All right, but you never know what may happen. Maybe there will be one who will be willing to talk to me for this channel. Okay, maybe. And when I say maybe, yeah, what I'm saying is if I actually do it, okay, or if I actually step out and, you know, say I'm going to do that, all right? All right. Yeah, because I got all kind of shit on my mind and all kind of other things that I'm trying to, you know, that I'm working on, that I'm doing, you know, for myself and living my life. So some of these things that I said I want to do, and I just kind of skip over it because, you know, a bill got to be paid. You understand what I'm saying? That'd be my focus. You understand what I'm saying? Got to get me in a child of school and work and all of that kind of stuff. All right. So anyway, but let's get back here. All right. Now, the conception of God and the creation stories is somewhat different from later views. For one thing, although the biblical God has no apparent rivals, okay, he obviously is not alone. Okay, why do we say that? Because what did he say? Okay, when he declares, what did I just say? Let us make man in our own image. He was not talking to himself. Okay, and the Hebrew word in the scriptures is Elohim. Okay, which is plural, or you know, or the gods. Okay, let us make man in our own image. Now, who was he talking to? He is most likely addressing his heavenly counselors, some who are identified in later texts such as Psalms and Job. I have to see that. Okay, that will be very interesting. But also now, you know, from the Christian perspective, there are some, you know, who are so dead set on their, well, we all are, you know, we dead set on our particular belief system. Okay, there's some they believe that, okay, it was the Trinity, he was talking to Jesus, you know, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, although they're supposed to be 3 in 1, not necessarily 3 separate beings. Okay, but 3 in 1, kind of like when we were talking about polytheism, okay, in the various forms of polytheism, where one, you know, you have, where it's, in a sense, it's kind of more monotheistic, okay, but these other gods are just various aspects of the one. All right, and it has been argued, okay, and we're not really on Christianity, but we'll get to it. It's kind of hard not to talk about some aspects of Christianity with this, but you know, it has been argued. Some are like, you know, Christianity really isn't monotheistic, but we're going to move on. Now, what we are going to find as we continue on with this, that in these early stages of Judaism, they were not monotheistic either. But we're going to see that as we move on. Okay. Okay. But anyway, God is not represented as pure spirit. Okay. I think what they're saying, well, I'll read this. Okay, why are we saying that God is not represented as pure spirit? Like, now when we talk about Taoism, for example, the Tao isn't necessarily referred to as spirit, okay, but pure, okay, in the sense that there's no personality, there's no gender, there's just none of that. Okay, you don't like human, I say he, but doesn't like, scratch that. Okay, doesn't like humans, doesn't dislike humans, you know, hey, it just is what it is. All things are manifestations of the Tao, just period. The Tao is the way, how things work, how nature's working. And remember, even human beings are nature, are a part of nature as well. Okay. The account but why is he saying is not represented as pure spirit? Because it appears as though, you know, God walks, okay, talks to them, you know, eats with them, okay. It had made the garden to enjoy strolls, and when he wants to enjoy the cool breezes, you know, I don't know about all that, but that I don't know where the author of the text gets that, but just because I don't know does not mean it's not correct. Okay. God allows Adam and Eve, because the Hebrew Bible itself may have some variation, okay, than what we find in the quote-unquote Old Testament of the Christian Bible. Okay, so there may be a little bit more there. Okay, God allows Adam and Eve to eat from almost all the trees, but forbids them to eat fruit from one of the trees. Okay, now in the text it says he forbids them to eat from one of the trees. that God especially needs to nourish his supernatural life and insight. Okay. I've never heard that before except when I am teaching. Okay. It's not something I have focused on. Okay. Now, Eve was tempted to eat from the forbidden tree. She does, and urges Adam to do the same. For their disobedient act, they are exiled from God's garden. God can no longer trust them. Okay? Knowing that if they were to remain, they might become his rivals. Now they must live outside the garden, work, and suffer for the rest of their amazingly long lives. Okay, that's what he has here. Amazingly long life. Now, why are we saying that God, that Adam and Eve might become his rivals? The specific tree that they were forbidden to eat from, what tree was that? That was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay? Now, he's telling them, don't eat from that tree. In other words, why? Well, there's some knowledge there that obviously he did not want them to have, or as I was taught growing up, that they were not intended to have. Okay? But this God, had that knowledge that he didn't want them to have, and once they got that knowledge, okay, he had the knowledge. And that might be the assumption here, okay, while the author of the text is saying that he needs to nourish his supernatural life and insight from the tree, okay, because he has the knowledge, okay, of good and evil. They don't. Don't eat from that tree. I don't want you to have that knowledge. Eve is tempted, and also we find in the scriptures too, if you really read it, it's kind of like it's made it out to look like, it was just Eve, she was tempted, and she called Adam over and tempted him. Okay, but if you further study and research and going in depth with the scripture as it's written, it really looks like more like, yeah, she was tempted, but he was standing right there too. Okay, that's kind of a side note. Okay, okay. Now, I just a side note. It may not be important, but it might be. Now, first of all, let me just say this: there is nothing in there when it says a fruit, okay, about it being an apple. Please, people, that's so irritating. To me, it's just such a I don't want to say youthful, but almost, I don't know if I want to call it immature. I don't know what the word is right now. Way of looking at it. Okay, simply because it says fruit. It doesn't even... Now, if we are talking about an actual piece of fruit, there's no indication anywhere in there to say what kind of fruit it was. Okay, was it a pear tree, a lemon tree? You understand what I'm saying? Whatever other kind of fruits grow on trees. Okay? Number one. Okay, number two. But understand, when we talk about fruit, fruit is not just... I don't have my other phone out here with me. Fruit is not just, the edible fruit. Okay, like apple, orange, banana, whatever. Okay, fruit is also knowledge. Okay, fruit, or even how we sometimes say the fruit of their labors or something like that. Okay, it is meaning, what I'm saying is, it means more than just, a piece of fruit that we physically chomp down on and eat. Also, what I have found in my studies, when I studied with the Hebrew community that I studied with, and I did talk to a few Jewish people just because I wanted to be sure that it was correct. Part of the Hebrew culture, and trees are not just looked at as a physical tree. I'm pointing out because there's trees everywhere around me. A physical tree that grows up out of the ground. Okay, trees were, I think, also kind of metaphorically looked at as people, groups of people, which kind of makes a little bit more sense. Okay, if we're talking about a group or a community, or maybe the gods themselves, okay, who had this knowledge, don't talk to them. Don't eat. Okay, don't absorb. Okay, the information, okay, about good and evil from them. I don't want you to be like us, okay, or to be, you know, the Elohim, okay, or like me, that particular God. I don't, you all cannot, you know, have this knowledge, okay, or could have been, or maybe not all of the gods, okay, or all, because we obviously know, okay, we have to have an understanding and know that there were other people around. I know this is, you know, the story of the creation, okay, as it is understood by people that follow, you know, a particular religious tradition, okay, but understand that, you know, we're gonna get to it. Cain killed Abel, and God had to put a mark on Cain so would nobody hurt him. Well, who else would be there? Okay, and he went off and he found what? More people. Okay, so you understand what I'm saying? So in my asking, you know, because again, this is what I was taught when I studied with the Hebrew community, and then asking further, I have consistently been told yes, exactly. So it's kind of like, if you don't really have an understanding of Judaism and the Hebrew culture, it's kind of really, you know, well, I feel like to some extent you may not really understand Christianity as well as one may think they do. Okay, that's just my thought process. Okay, but you damn sure may not really understand these stories. Okay, you know, without that full knowledge. All right, but let's keep going. To some, the portrait of Eve, okay, is as a temptress who brings down punishment on Adam and herself. And this portrait is distressing. It should be pointed out that Eve, as the author of the text says, she's the one with the ambition and personality. You know, it's kind of like Adam, just there. Okay, while Adam seems far less colorful. And this just goes to what he was saying about how, you know, the Hebrew Bible, the powerful imagery and whatnot, whatever else he said. Okay, here. All right. Let's see. Now, but whatever the interpretation, and there have been many interpretations, the story of Adam and Eve influenced Western views of women, men, and marriage for several thousand years. Okay, this is a part of the laws of how it has influenced the laws in our culture and Western culture, as well as how we understand our role as men and women and marriage. Okay, and how we are to relate to one another in that regard. Okay. All right, let's just keep on going. Okay, next is, now I'm talking about our culture. I ain't talking about no other cultures that they don't view it the same way and blah blah. No, okay, I'm talking about Western culture here. Next, because you know, I'm not saying if somebody were to think that they're wrong. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just focusing on Western culture. Okay. Next is the story of Adam and Eve's children, Cain and Abel. They have a sibling rivalry, and Cain kills Abel. Now, what is this about? This tale may reflect ancient rivalries between farmers and herders, right? Because they both wanted to present, you know, something to God, a sacrifice or something to God. And Abel was a farmer. Oh, no, Abel was a herder. Okay, possibly. Because why do you say that? Because what did he present to God? He presented that flesh. He presented that blood. Okay, you know, sacrificing sacrificing an animal. What did Cain present? You know, like produce, fruits, vegetables, that type of thing. And that was not pleasing to God. Okay, but what was pleasing to God? The flesh, the blood. Okay, the sacrifice of life. Okay, and understand, you know, we find sacrifice in a lot of these religions of life. Okay, whether it's animals or people. Okay, and we do find the sacrifice of people in Christianity, or a person in Christianity. All right, or of God himself. Okay, according to the belief system. Now, ain't nobody can say that necessarily. Okay, no. What you mean? You believe you're a sacrifice of God? Well, you say that, you know, God is, that Jesus is the Son of God, or that Jesus was God incarnate. Okay, and he was sacrificed. Okay, the blood. Okay. Oh, the blood of Jesus. Okay. It shall never lose its power. It's in our music. You know, it's in Christian music or gospel, not just gospel, in all, you know, the Christian music. There was another one I was just thinking about. About, you know, the lamb that was slain, that Jesus is also viewed as the perfect lamb. Why? Because when the Jews, you know, when the Hebrews had to, you know, do their repentant work or whatever, and they had to find a lamb without spot or blemish. Okay, it had to be perfect. Okay, and they would sacrifice it, and God was pleased. Okay, all right, but let's just, you know, move on. All right. And I remember I said, for that last part, I said the Hebrew culture. Okay, this Jewish culture here. Okay, Hebrew. I prefer to say Hebrew, but nevertheless. Following this is the story of the Great Flood. Where do we also find the story that was written before it was written in the Hebrew Bible? It's part of Mesopotamia. It's a Mesopotamian tale called the Epic of Gilgamesh, another story that possibly was borrowed from a neighboring culture, okay? Disgusted with the rapidly growing immoral human population, God sends a flood to do away with all of humanity. And it says in the Bible that God repented that he had ever made human beings, all right? So he sent a flood their way to destroy all of humanity, okay, except for who? Righteous Noah and his family. He warns Noah to build a large wooden boat, an ark, and fill it with animals, because only those in the boat will survive, okay, the coming downpour. All right. At the end of the flood, which obviously would say, if he was going to save at least one of them, he was saying, you know, well, I'll give him another chance. You understand what I'm saying? Because then life was to be on earth, was to be replenished, okay, through Noah and his family, okay? This is, again, this culture, okay? Okay. At the end of the flood, God makes a pact with Noah never again to destroy the earth by water. Okay, I think there's something in there though about destroying it by fire, but he promises that he wouldn't do it again by water. As a sign of his promise, God places his bow, perhaps an archer's bow, into the sky. The rainbow is a reminder of his solemn promise. Like several of the early stories, this account gives an explanation for natural phenomena. So here we have these stories giving an explanation for things, okay? The story also explains how from the three sons of Noah different races arrive, okay? More explanation, okay? You know, of things, okay, that, you know, again, when you go back to one of my earlier videos about what is religion, explanation about questions, okay, that religion answers, okay? Who are we, where we come from, how did this come to be, okay, etc., etc. Now, chapter 11 of Genesis, still in Genesis, tells the story of the Tower of Babel, or Babylonia. They wanting to reach the heavenly realm that was believed to exist above the skies, people began building a very tall tower. God didn't want to be his private world to be invaded, so he stops the construction by making builders speak different languages. Okay, I think it's just this fascinating. It's interesting that they would think that they could build a tower that, you know, tall. But look at many of the structures we have on Earth. Okay, because they can no longer understand each other, they can't finish the tower. This explains what? Why we have different languages, okay, in the world. Very convenient story. Okay, again, who are we, where we come from, how this come to be, etc., etc. Here we are, religion answering these questions. Okay, not saying that they're necessarily, you know, this is exactly what happened. Again, the historical accuracy, there is nothing to verify that any of this actually happened anywhere. Okay, now I know some people may watch you see stuff on TV, what are these history channels and all of this kind of thing, okay, where they talk about these stories, all right, and, you know, some supposed evidence, all right. Now, did Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, Noah, and all others, did they really exist? Okay, it's not just here, okay. Like when I was saying in one of the religions I was going over, there is necessarily no evidence to say that any of the founders of any of these religions that I've gone over existed. No solid evidence of there being a Siddhartha Gautama who became known as the Buddha, okay? Or I even think with Confucianism, okay, who they call Confucius, okay, and others, okay? So did they actually exist? For centuries, Jews have thought of them as historical figures. Now, however, influenced by the views of scholars, many Jews view them instead as symbolic figures, okay? Not exactly literal, who set the stage for the events to follow. Here we are, the events to follow. Here we're getting more into now more historical accuracy, okay, according to the studies here. The first 11 chapters of Genesis are in effect a great allegorical introduction to the rest of the Hebrew Bible. There are many indications of this non-historical symbolic purpose. Okay, non-historical symbolic purpose. Okay, what are the indications? For example, Adam and his immediate descendants are described as living to great ages. Adam is said to have lived to 930 years old, and then we have Methuselah, who was the longest lived, said to have lived to 969 years old. Now let's look at their names that are more symbolic. Okay. Okay. Let's look at the names. Okay, for example, Adam means humankind. Eve means life. Scholars, as pointed out earlier, believe that the stories of the creation and the flood derive from earlier Mesopotamian tales, okay? Tales from other cultures, poems from other cultures, okay? What is important to understand, though, is that these stories and these stories and these poems from other cultures that existed in time long before these stories, okay, came into play. All right, understand that. What is important to understand, though, is that these stories were given new meanings by the Israelite scribes who adapted them. Okay, now I know some folks would say stole them. Okay, I like to be a little bit more, giving and kind. Maybe they didn't necessarily steal them, but borrowed them. Okay, you're going to find that. Okay, when different cultures are intertwined with one another, and we are talking about really, when you look at it and you study it, this was not no huge, massive nation of folk. Okay, we're talking about smaller cultures that were often, in exile in these much larger cultures, okay, that they were a part of. And we see that historically, with many groups of people, okay, and they take on, what happens, you end up taking on, the smaller cultures end up taking on much of the ways of and stories and so on and so forth, ways of the larger culture, especially the longer that they're there. They might stop their traditional way of dress. Okay, generationally, as you move on, they may stop speaking their particular language. Okay, they take on the ways of the larger culture, and there are other examples in history besides this one where we can see that happens. We have seen that in our own culture. All right, let's move on. All right, the world of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. Adam is the first Hebrew patriarch or father source. Okay, that's a Greek word, father source. He is introduced in chapter 12. I said Adam. Did I say Adam? If I did, I was wrong. I meant Abraham. Okay, Abraham is the first Hebrew patriarch. Okay, now we're getting into, see, all of that set the stage for what's to follow. Now what's to follow? The history of the Hebrews. Who are they? Where did they come from? What are their origins? Okay, now we're getting into that. All of these people before that were not Hebrews. Okay, there were no Hebrews. There was no nation of Israel. Okay, Israeli nation didn't exist. Okay, but now we're getting into it. All right, so Abraham, and we are still in Genesis. Okay, so we find Abraham here in chapter 12 of Genesis. Okay, now it seems as though we're moving more into something that seems more historical. Abraham is known at first as Abram. We find a lot of name changes. okay? So his name was Abram. He became known as Abraham, okay? Abraham is called by God, and we're talking about this particular God here. He is called by God, okay, to leave his home for another land, okay? And you may be saying, well, Miss Kenyatta, why are you saying this particular God, okay, as opposed to just God? We're going to get into that as we move further along, okay? So he said, leave your home and go somewhere else, okay? Now, originally from you are, which is present-day Iraq, Abraham migrates via Haran in Turkey to the land of Canaan, okay? And the scripture reads, Genesis 12, 1 through 2a. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation. Boom, here we are. Okay, leave this land, go to this land. Okay, go to Canaan, and when you get there, I'm going to make you a great nation. All right. Now, this is significant to Judaism. Of course it is. Here we're talking about their origins, okay? Because it is seen as establishing a claim to a region now called what? Israel. All right. Abraham's migration becomes a pilgrimage of great importance. Now, we got to remember there was some folk already there. Okay? But let's just keep on going. Okay? This is what this God told him to do. Okay, okay. It becomes a pilgrimage of great importance, making him, his son Isaac, and his grandson Jacob the patriarchs of Judaism. All right. After assuring Abraham of land and many descendants, God enters into a solemn covenant or a contract with Abraham. In return for God's promise to provide land, protection, and descendants, this nation, okay, new nation here, Abraham and his male descendants must be circumcised as a sign of their exclusive relationship with God, okay? All right. The most famous story of Abraham concerns his son Isaac. Abraham and his wife Sarah were not able to have a son. Okay, God, promised them that they was gonna have a son, but here they was old folk. Okay, Sarah urges Abraham to have a son, to go to, her maid Hagar, which, some scholars think that he's probably one of his wives. Okay, another one of his wives. Okay, or maybe concubines or whatever, okay, and have a son, and he did, okay, and he had a son with Hagar, Ishmael, okay, but then, remember when he told, God told him, y'all gonna have, you and Sarah gonna have a son, and she laughed. She didn't believe that, because they was old, so you go with her and do it, because I know that ain't gonna happen with me, all right, but what happened? She had a son too. All right, and then what did she do? Okay, she got jealous of Hagar and Ishmael and told Abraham to get rid of them, send them away. Now, this aspect of the story will be important to Islam. Okay, because why? It is believed that the Nation of Islam, and I'm not talking about the Nation of Islam in terms of, Malcolm X and Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam in America. No, hold on, Islam, okay, or the Muslim nation, or I don't know how to say it, okay, but nevertheless, it is believed that they came through the son Ishmael, because God didn't say, I'm going to make you a nation of, through the son, through only you and Sarah. No, he just told Abraham, I'm going to make you a mighty nation. Okay, and so we have two nations to come out from Abraham. Okay, now shockingly, God then asks, okay, so Hagar had Ishmael, okay, and then Sarah had Isaac. Okay, God asked Abraham to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. Now, perhaps the author of the text says This is a vestige of an earlier practice of human sacrifice. Okay, we hear a lot about sacrifice, in our world today, human sacrifice, especially when we talk about, just some of the people that might be celebrities or well-known folk or whatever, and then we hear about some of these other cultures. Okay, but apparently human sacrifice is nothing new. Okay, and I'm sure many people say, yeah, know that. Okay, Abraham agrees though. Okay, and he sets out with his son to Mount Moriah. This is believed by the Jews to be the hill on which Jerusalem now rests. Just before Abraham goes to sacrifice him, God stops him, and what does he find? A ram in the bush, okay, and tells him to use that as a sacrifice instead. It is believed here that God tested Abraham's devotion, and he proved his absolute loyalty to God, and in doing so, Abraham showed that he was worthy of land, wealth, fame. Isn't this interesting? I didn't even realize, okay, because I was talking about how people talk about, all the human sacrifice, people sacrifice humans and their family or children or whatever for fame, all right, but hey, he showed himself worthy here, okay, that because he was gonna do it, okay, of land, wealth, fame, and the joy of knowing he will have innumerable descendants. This passage may show the replacement of human sacrifice with the sacrifice of animals. Now, Genesis contains stories about extremely memorable women. We have the matriarchs. We have Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, and I already mentioned Lilith, okay, which is not mentioned here in this text, okay. Although these women are always linked with their husbands, they all have strong and carefully drawn personalities. Sarah stays modestly inside the tent when strangers arrive, but laughs loudly when she hears that she's about to, I think this is it, about to have, that she's going to, get pregnant. They hear her and question why she's laughing. So he's just using that to show, her personality, okay? The stories in Genesis also tell of mysterious contacts with God called theophanies, okay? Sometimes the theophanies are friendly, and sometimes they're scary, fierce, and frightening. God appears to Isaac, for example, and promises protection and many descendants. One of Isaac's sons, Jacob, has a vision of God in a dream. He sees a stairway leading from earth into the sky. God is at the top, and angels are ascending and descending, linking heaven and earth. Stairway to heaven here, okay? A more unusual theophany occurs when Jacob wrestles all night long with a mysterious stranger. Okay, it says God or God's angel, God's angels. There are some translations that say God. I feel like your earlier translations will say God. Definitely in the King James Version it says God, and then there's some translation where it says, God, it was an angel of God. All right, but at dawn, and I'm like, well, wow, that's so bold. You know what I'm saying? For Jacob to be wrestling with God, okay, or this God here, okay, of this people, okay. At dawn, the fight is over, and Jacob receives a new name from this, God, okay, who he wrestled with all night long. Okay, again, we have a lot of name changes here. What is his new name now? His name is now Israel, or one that wrestles with God. All right, because Jacob and his sons would settle the land of Canaan, it came to be called what? Israel. Okay, after him. Okay, his new name. Okay, Jacob, with his 2 wives and 2 concubines, has many sons who will become the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, now we're getting more into, the history. All right, and more into their beginnings. Okay. Joseph is one of Jacob's 12 sons. All right. Okay, he's his next to last son. Okay, and he is the focus of the final section of Genesis. Joseph's brothers sense that his fathers love him best, and they scheme to have him killed. Okay, now he was chosen, obviously, okay, by God, and many, we have a lot of talk about that. Okay, his own brothers trying to have him killed. Okay, so we hear a lot of talk about people that are chosen. Okay, and you know what you're gonna face. It ain't the most exciting thing to want to be chosen or to be chosen, okay? But nevertheless, all right, so they was trying to kill him, all right? Ultimately, though, they sell him as a slave, okay? And of course, like I said, chosen, but also his father, kind of favored him, okay? And that, I guess you could look at people that are chosen as, for whatever, as being favored, okay? And whether chosen by God, chosen, by the mom or daddy, at the job, whatever, chosen in whatever regard and whatever aspect of life, okay? Those people are met with a lot of adversity, and here we see, okay, an example in the scriptures. And actually, when I get done with Job, and hopefully you all will be patient with me, because like I said, it's 42 whole chapters, and I think I'm only on chapter, I don't know, 15, 16, something like that. All right, but nevertheless, Job, chosen, okay? And look at and chosen, okay, I say chosen, maybe not for anything in particular, to do anything what we might look as greater, outstanding, or trying to save the world or anything like that, but he was upstanding, upright before God, and as a result of that, God even used him, chose him to go through some serious pain and adversity, okay? So it's not, let's have an understanding from this perspective here. It is not something that necessarily people should even want to aspire to. If you don't want to go through no pain and adversity, okay, and folk trying to kill you. You understand what I'm saying? And even God sitting back like, get him. Okay, because that's what we find in Job. Okay, Satan, what you doing? I'm just walking to and fro, God. Okay, I got somebody for you. All right, but anyway, all right, let's see. All right. Okay, but now ultimately they sell him as a slave. Okay, the brothers sell their brother here, Jacob, as a slave. He's taken to Egypt. Okay, there, through his special gifts, okay, chosen folk with these special gifts, all right, he rises in importance to become a government minister. All right. When a famine, I think they said he was second in, to Pharaoh in the role that he played. And here he was not even an Egyptian, okay? When a famine in Israel brings his brothers down to Egypt to look for grain because they was out there starving, okay? But Joseph knew what was going to happen. That's how he rose to importance, okay? He helped the Pharaoh and saved Egypt so they wouldn't be in starvation mode, okay? But his brothers were, who did him dirty and nasty, and whatnot, okay? But they played the role that they were supposed to play. They did what they were supposed to do, okay? When a famine in Israel brings his brothers down to Egypt to look for grain, Joseph is not vengeful, but he invites his brothers to bring their father to Egypt and to settle there permanently. And this is what they did, okay? They settled in the land of Goshen in northeastern Egypt. Now remember and understand that he was a government minister. The Pharaoh knew him well, okay? He worked with the Pharaoh, okay? Sure, bring your folk on here, because we're not talking about a lot of people. We're not talking about a huge group of people at this particular time, okay? Still very small, just a family, okay? 12 brothers, with their children and their wives and all of that kind of thing, and the daddy and whatnot. Maybe some of his wives that was living. We ain't talking about a whole lot of folk, okay? But they didn't take up much space, okay? But now the book of Genesis ends with the death of Jacob. Now, how historically true are these stories, especially that of Abraham? Traditional believers and some scholars think the stories surrounding Abraham do express historical truth, though shaped by oral transmission. So, maybe some truth to it here, okay? Other scholars, however, argue that the Israelites arose in Israel itself, possibly as a landless peasant class that revolted against its rulers, okay? So there are other scholars who say, hey, this group of people right here, this land of Israel was already established, okay? These were some the peasant folk, okay, who were landless. They had nowhere to go, okay? This wasn't their home. Okay, this place Israel here wasn't their home. Okay, I'm not sure they're saying that. Well, if they were saying that the name of it was Israel, I'm not sure. Okay, but in the land that they were supposedly going to, according to the story, okay, where God told Abraham to go to Canaan, these folks was already here. Okay, these people didn't have no place to go. They didn't have no land. Okay, they were some nomads. Okay, and you nomads. You might be nomads, but you're living in this land. Okay, so you are subject to the law of the land that you are living in. Okay, but you don't like you got some issues, but y'all just some peasant folk, and now y'all want to revolt. Okay. All right, but anyway, all right, if that view is true, then the story of Abraham and his entry into Israel from elsewhere may not be historically accurate. All right. In addition, there is no archaeological evidence that has been found to prove the existence of Abraham. Here we are again. All right. The debate about the historical existence of Abraham may never be resolved. Okay, so you're gonna see, I remember in class sometime when I teachers folks say, well, I saw such and such on TV. Okay, it's not going to be resolved. You're going to see some things that say there is proof, even with Jesus. You're going to see some things that say there is proof that this person existed or that these people existed and all this stuff did happen. And you're going to see some things that say it didn't. Okay, all right. And you're going to see some things that show how, hold on, that a lot of this stuff, a lot of these stories, so on and so forth, was borrowed from other cultures. Okay, and when you can see that there's evidence of that. Okay, it's the same cigarette, y'all. I know it may look like I'm smoking a lot of cigarettes here, but it's the same cigarette. I take like a couple of puffs, 2-3 puffs, put it out, and go pick it up. All right, now I ate a sandwich before I started this so I can keep on going, because see, sometimes when I get into this I get hungry. All right, but I purposely ate a sandwich, all right, before I started. All right, now let's look at Moses and the law. Well, maybe not. Maybe we'll stop. Yeah, I'm gonna stop right here because it can get really long. And I don't want to bore you. Okay, so we're going to have next, when I get back into it, we're going to have Moses and the law, the judges and kings. Okay, we're going to talk about these 10 commandments a little bit. Okay, their exile and their captivity, return to Jerusalem and the second temple. Okay, and then some periods that we may not be familiar with. Okay, from the scriptures. All right. More historical stuff. Let me see. Looking to see how much more I have to go. This is a pretty long ass chapter here. Okay. Oh, it's not that bad. I said it pretty long because I think I spent a little bit more time. Oh yeah, no, it's long. Oh yeah, it's very long. Excuse me, I thought I was almost done. This is a very long chapter. Okay. So this might be 3 parts here. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to stop here. And next we're going to get into, like I said, I just told you Moses and the law. All right. So I certainly hope you all are enjoying this religious studies series. Okay, we got Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and I'll be done. Okay, with this aspect of it. Okay, let me see. We got some in the book here. Alternative, what the chapters refers to as alternative past, the modern search. I didn't do none of that stuff. Okay. Like Scientology, Rastafarianism here, goes into sanctity in Europe, other traditions of voodoo or Vodun here, Wicca, Druidism, that type of thing, okay, under alternative paths. But I'm not going to do that. We're just going to stick to this. Now, if you want me to, okay, then I will take some time to look over it. I never had time to go over any of that in class, so I really haven't looked over it from, you know, from the books, the textbook perspective. But if you're interested, you know, want to know more, then just put it in the comments. All right, check out my website, kenyattasintuition.com. I offer tarot readings, psychic readings, pendulum readings, mediumship. You can also contact me at kenyattasintuition@yahoo.com. Okay, I really didn't do no more with the Patreon because, you know, I just, you know, just not interested in continuing on with that. But I didn't get rid of the account, okay? But, you know, I don't want to do them tarot readings all day long like I was before, okay? Just every now and then, or when it hit me. But I didn't get rid of the account, okay? Because I'm thinking of just offering just, well, you know, we'll see. Okay, we'll see. Because I'm stopping myself because I often say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then I'll change my mind somewhere along the way. You know, that's just me. All right. But nevertheless, y'all have a wonderful day. Be blessed. Peace.